So my amazing spouse just gave you a little bit of history about what we did, and one thing he didn't say was that we've been studying with the Caro tribe for about me now almost 7 years. And so it has been a journey. This was our first time to Peru. When we were making this trip into a reality, one of the things I was very clear about was pretty much everything we do is spirit based. Like, how can we commune with nature, or can we find a new thought church to go visit? What can we do to grow and evolve? And I was very clear when we went on this for myself, but for specifically for my son who's sitting right there. I wanted him to see the world that he had never seen before. So think about how lucky we are in this country. We are very blessed. We have our problems. We can call those out, but we still have access to health care, access to food. When we were shut down, our government gave us money. In Peru, they shut them down, and that was it. They were not allowed to leave their house for almost 2 years, except to go to the grocery store or to go to work. And they got no money. So that experience has just touched my heart so deeply that when I got off the airplane, I told my friends and family that we're with, I said, I got to call Reverend Darlene and I got to tell her we're doing this. We're going to talk about this because I want to share with you all how this trip changed us. But more importantly, it has to go with the theme, which she gave me very clearly. It has to walk the talk. And I knew instantly. I was like, oh, I already know what that talk is about. I downloaded that talk in that moment. And that's when you know you're with the divine, is when you step out and you step out in trust, you step out in faith, and you know that the divine or the universe or God or whatever you choose to call it has got your back. And this trip flowed so beautifully. It flowed so beautifully. There were bumps in the road, of course. There's always bumps in the road. We are humans. We are here. We have problems. We have good. We have bad. It just happens. That's life. But we are flowing. And that's the whole message of unity, is that we flow. 3 separate events really pushed us into an evolution while we were in Peru. And as you saw my talk today, if you read the newsletter, you see it's about walking in trust. We have to walk in trust. That's the foundation. When we trust, we can then start moving freely. But it's hard to trust. It's hard. And we get called to the carpet often, as we did in Peru. And I will share the first experience with you. So there is this place just above Cusco. So Cusco sits in this valley, and there's about, I think, maybe 400,000, 500,000 people. It's a very bustling, busy city. But if you go to this sacred site, it's called Sacsayhuaman. And if has anybody been to Peru? I'm just curious, really quick before. Okay, so some of you may have been to some of these sites, so you can relive them with me. But Sacsayhuaman is an area that sits on a mountain that overlooks the valley of Cusco. It is an ancient site that, as Michael said, Inti Taita, it was built to celebrate the sun, which they call Father Sun. Inti Taita literally means Father Sun. So they celebrated him, and these traditions go back thousands of years. The official history is that this site was built in about the 13th or 14th century by the Inca, and that's what they tell you. However, if you do some research and some digging, you can see that carbon dating takes it back even further, and they're not quite sure, but they think it's probably close to 1,000 years old. They did celebrations, and they still relive those celebrations in Sacsayhuaman today. And so we knew we were going to go there. And if you've been to a third world country, you know that there's a lot of need, and there's a lot of what we would consider pushiness. Like, they're always like, oh, do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy that? Do you want to come to my restaurant? Do you need a massage? Do you need shaman work? Do you need blah, 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 blah? And it can be overwhelming. And of course, we knew when we got to Sacsayhuaman that, and I'm not going to lie, some people, when they hear that, they think I'm saying sexy woman, and I'm not. I'm saying Sacsayhuaman. Anyway, but it may come out fast. So we knew when we got there, okay, we're just going to do the little tour that we're going to do. We had some information, and we are not going to talk to anybody. We're going to put our heads down, our hats are going to be on, and we're just going to plow on through until we can get inside. Well, of course, that's not how it happened. Sometimes God has a little different idea for you. And this beautiful soul stood in front of us as we were paying our way in, and we were just kind of darting around. And this beautiful soul stood there, and he said, "Would you like a tour?" And there was this moment of pause where I had made up my mind what I was going to do. And then the universe said, "Do this instead." And intuitively, I looked at Marcus, who was with me, and then my foster mom, who I call, she's my surrogate mother. Her name is Olga. She was with us as well. And we all looked at each other and we said, "We're going to do this. We're going to hire this man to give us on this tour." So his name was Wilbur, and he was from the Karo tribe. And if you can imagine a sprite in the human form, this would be him. He immediately was so excited we hired him. He was like, "Yay, follow me." And he whips out a flute and he starts do 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 do, and we're dancing, and all of a sudden it's like the whole energy changes and we are dancing up this mountain and he's playing these songs, and it was just so sweet and so beautiful. There we were standing on this mountain with this man playing this flute, and it was echoing off these rocks. There now the rocks are like, and I will tell you, I took lots of pictures, and for whatever reason, my phone was cleared of those pictures. I was able to put a few on my social media, but most of them got cleared off. So that's the magic of Peru. You just got to roll with it. So I would have loved to show you some pictures, but I would encourage you to look it up if you want to see. So we were there, and he was doing this beautiful music and just telling us all these beautiful stories, and it was so powerful. There was this one moment where he said, "I want you to climb to this big mountain here. We're going to do like a hike up the side of this mountain." Now mind you, there are hundreds of people everywhere. You hear languages from all over the world. Tour guides are all with these people. There's all this stuff, and he wants to take us to this one place where there's no one. Trust. So we said, "Okay." And it was enough to where Olga could not come with us. So she had to stay down. But Marcus and I hiked up this mountain, and we get there, and he is just do, 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 do. And then all of a sudden he puts his flute up and he goes, "We will now go in this cave." And he's deadpan. I mean, straight. And we said, "Oh, okay." And he said, "I give you two rules or two things you need to do. Always keep your hand on the left side of the cave and be prepared to stoop down a little bit." Okay. So we go around the corner, and then all of a sudden he disappears in the cave. And we're like, and Marcus, I know, is remembering this moment where we were like, "Okay, well, we have to trust." So we just put our hand on the wall and we start going in, and it's pitch black, pitch black. We could see nothing. So we're going along, and Marcus goes, "Mom, it's really dark." And I said to myself more than my child, "It's okay. Calm down. Take a deep breath. We're going to be just fine." Wilbur said, "Leave your hand on this wall." We start walking, and it's getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And there's a smell of llama poop and pee because there were llamas all over, and it's smaller and smaller. And I had a walking stick in my backpack, and it was scraping the top, and we were literally down. And then Marcus is like, "Mom, it's getting so small. It's getting so small." And it was a moment where I almost felt myself hyperventilate. It was pitch black. We were like this on this wall. And I said to myself, more than my child, "It's okay. We have to trust. Keep your hand on the wall. Keep going." And then all of a sudden, we saw a spark of light. And we ran. We ran out of that cave. And we were so excited that we got out. And there was Wilbur. And he was like, "Yay! Do, 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 do." And we didn't have time to process it. We just were like, "Okay." And then all of a sudden, there were people everywhere again. It was the strangest experience. Strangest experience. It was about trust, though. We had to trust Wilbur. to take care of us. And we did. And that's the foundation of walking the talk. Is if you're going to truly walk your talk, you have to trust. You have to trust yourself and you have to trust the divine. It's the God within and the God without. An interesting note that we found out later was that, sorry, let me take a drink here. In the Paco tradition, which the Pacos are what we would call a shaman, they take initiates to a cave to do that exact thing. Why were we the only people who did this out of all those other people? I'm sure other people have done it because Wilbur let us through. I'm sure he's done that before, but no one else was doing it at that time. And we didn't see anyone else go back in that cave. So Marcus and I were initiated in some weird way, but we trusted. Psalm 56:3. Whenever I'm afraid, I will trust in you. Whenever I'm afraid, I will trust in you. I will trust in the divine, but you know who else I'm going to trust? Myself. We have to trust ourselves. There were a lot of kids, y'all, this morning. There were a lot of kids over there. I don't know if you just heard, but there was some commotion going on. It's very sweet. The second ancient site that we visited was an area right outside of this little town of Pisac. So if you ever end up in Peru and you love Asheville, you need to go to Pisac. Pisac is hippies from all over the world. I heard German and I heard Spanish and I heard there were some kids there from Japan. I say kids, they're probably in their young 20s, but there were a bunch of young people there and they were all there for various different reasons. And Pisac reminded me of Asheville. They did not have a drum circle, but they did have drumming circles that you could go to. They didn't have one open, but it was such a really special town. I felt right at home the whole time we were there. Above Pisac, there are some ancient ruins or ancient sites again that are that date back, as the history says, to about the 14th or 15th century. I find it interesting that they say the Inca did all of these in about 100 years. So there's something fishy about that because if you look at these sites, you will see there's a lot of work that has gone on into them, and there's no way they could have built them that quickly. It's really a beautiful place. We were lucky to be with a friend of ours who, as Michael mentioned before, has lived in Cusco and speaks Spanish and knows the culture and has studied with the the Q'ero tribe for many years. And when we went to this site, it's just there are no tour guides. I will say that. I think you could hire one, but it's mostly just you're walking around because it's hundreds of acres and you are going straight up the side of a mountain to get to these. It's almost like what you would think of in Tibet with the monasteries with all of the stairs. It's a lot of steps. And so we were going up these stairs and there was this one place that really called to me and I couldn't figure out why, and I just stopped, and it was these four separate fountains. They had aqueducts, which they were very famous for. They had the aqueduct with the water coming down the side of the mountain, and they were feeding each of these four fountains. And I just stopped and I just thought, this is it's peaceful, it's tranquil. That's the word that came to me. It was tranquil. So I was just sitting there, and my friend came up and she said, "Oh, you found the fountains?" And I said, "Yeah." And I was ready to go on. And the interesting part was the bathroom was right around the corner. So most people walked right by and never even paid attention because they were headed towards the bathroom. But there I was in this place, and she said, "There's a really fascinating history with these four fountains, but you're not going to know that unless you know the local culture." So the first fountain is recognizing hucha. So their word for hucha is what we would call dense energy. You know that feeling when you have a fight with a friend or a relative, or you watch the news for 5 seconds and you get, right? That's hucha. You're building up that dense energy. And we talk a lot about energy and unity. So you're building this up. The idea is you want to release it and not keep hold of it. But the first fountain represents hucha, just acknowledging that you have it and that we build it because we are human, we have those experiences. So she said, let's just sit here a moment and do that. And there's all these people milling about, and we're just kind of standing here, taking a moment. And then we move to the second fountain. The second fountain is about releasing that hucha. Now, as someone who is a practicing psychotherapist, I totally was down with this. I'm like, this is awesome. Most people don't acknowledge that we build that up, and then we don't acknowledge releasing it. We stuff it down with shopping or TV or whatever in this culture. We don't really have a way to release that. We don't even really acknowledge it a lot of times. It's just there. We know it's there. We feel the tension. Sometimes we release, but a lot of the times we just find the next thing to entertain ourselves with or distract us. So we sat there for a moment, releasing. The third fountain was what they call bringing down the sami. So if hucha is dense energy that we collect, being a human and our experiences, sami would be what you would think of as the light of God or the divine. Bringing down the divine. I like to think of manna from heaven. That's when I think of Sami, I think of manna falling down. It just feels good. It's the bliss that we all seek. It's that connection. But the interesting part about the Caro people and the Inca and the way they believed is that it's not bad or good. Neither one of them are bad or good. Hucha is not bad. It's just dense. They don't they don't have those understandings of bad or good when it comes to experiences. So you have dense energy and you have light energy. They both serve their purpose. They both are here for a reason. You don't want to be too heavy in the hucha and you don't want to be too high on the sami because you're not grounded. We need a little bit of both to keep us here in this human experience. So we brought down the sami and we're sitting there, and I know people, and our boys are just like walking. There's llamas and people everywhere, and the boys are just kind of doing their thing, and we're just sitting here and just bringing this down and just feeling good. And then finally she said, okay, we need to move to the fourth fountain. The fourth fountain is you become the offering. Now, what I mean by that, if we're going to put it in August 2023 unity terms, you walk your talk. You become the gift of the divine. All of your actions, your thoughts, your words, your deeds, everything that you're doing is a gift. When we're walking in universal flow, that just comes naturally. I looked at my friend and I said, can I go back and start all over again? Because I know by the end of this day, something is going to happen and I'm going to have hucha again. And she said, oh, absolutely. The whole idea is that you do this over and over and over. It's not a one-time thing. So here in the meditation, in just a few minutes, we're actually going to do that. I'm going to walk you all through the meditation of releasing and becoming the offering or the gift. One of my favorite quotes by Lao Tzu says, when I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. I become what I might be. When we make room, when we let go of hucha, when we let go of all that dense energy, when we let go of old habits, old thought patterns, old relationships that are no longer serving us, that job, that whatever it might be, we make room for the gifts that the universe has for us. We have to let go first, though. So, as I mentioned before, we have to trust and then we have to release. And the last experience that we had was probably the most powerful. I feel myself getting choked up. My 12-year-old son, he's an amazing soul. He's an awesome kid. He really is. He's not perfect, but he's awesome. We were with a friend who has a son who is Marcus's best friend, who is also the same age. And in the Karo tradition, when you were 12, boy or girl, you were acknowledged as becoming a man or a woman. You were acknowledged as moving into that new experience. My friend had her son signed up with a local shaman, a Paco, to do this rite of passage for him, and they invited Marcus to join. So Marcus got to sit with this shaman who is actually, if you know the Shift Network, does anybody know the Shift Network? Yeah, so there's a gentleman on there by the name of Freddie Puma who's out of Peru, and this was him. And so he was doing this rite of passage for our boys. And it was very simple, but it was profound. He took a mesa, which is a prayer bundle, and he put it on top of Marcus's head, and he was ringing a bell. And he was saying things like, I see you. I see who you might become. Remember who you are. It was powerful. And then he did this really cool thing with tobacco smoke, and it just kind of sat on Marcus's head, and it looked like he was on fire, and it was really cool. I'm sitting there watching all of this, and I'm thinking to myself, my son is becoming a young man. I have to accept that. I have to accept that I'm doing the best I can. My husband and we're on this road together, and we are trying the best we can. We are white. My son is African American. He's going to have a very different experience than us. All these thoughts are going through my head. He's becoming a young man. What does that mean? What does that mean for him? How is he going to look? What is he going to be? La, 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 all those thoughts. And I just kept feeling this voice say, shh, it's okay. You have to accept. That's the third piece of this, is we have to accept. And that's hard because I want to protect him. I want to make sure that he does everything right, and I want to pick his friends. Oh no, you can hang out with them, but you can't hang out with them. And I want to, but I can't. He's a growing boy. He's going to make his own decisions, and I have to just be okay with that. As hard as it is. And as a proud member of ACOA, I don't know if you know what that is, but it is Adult Children of Alcoholics. We say the Serenity Prayer. And that's the prayer that kept coming to me during all of that. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I have to have the wisdom to know what I can change and what I can't. So, Richard, would you mind coming up and playing me a melody? Trust, release, acceptance. Those are the 3 steps that came to me when I decided to speak today about our trip in Peru. Those 3 steps. And I hope my son is hearing those steps. And I hope all the children and all of us are hearing those steps. Because once we learn to trust, we can take a deep breath. Life becomes a little bit easier. So let's take this within now. I'm going to guide you through the 4 fountain meditation. Let's take a deep breath and release. Putting your feet on the floor. And envision this as you like. Just let your mind take hold of the vision of the first fountain. You're standing in front of the first fountain and you hear the water trickling. Slight breeze maybe caressing your face. You can feel the warm Peruvian sun on your shoulders. And you acknowledge, as we are human, we have these experiences that bring forth hucha or dense energy. We just acknowledge them in the first fountain. Acknowledge that experience that created the hucha. There's no judgment. There's no bad. There's no good. There just is. So in this step, we are just being with it and sitting with it. As we move to the second fountain, we take those steps towards release. And in a way that feels comfortable for you, release that energy now that no longer serves you. You may feel it just gently fall away. You may feel it rise up. You may feel it falling to the ground, going back to the earth, however is best for you, but just let it go. Let go of all those thoughts that you're not worthy, that you're not good enough. Just let them go. You can even say to yourself, I release. As we move to the third fountain, we start bringing in that light. Oh, the light of the divine. Just feel it falling from the heavens, just cascading down. Beautiful light of God. Just feel that bliss, that love. Feel the love that the universe has for you, because you have made room for the gifts. You have made room for new adventures, new relationships, prosperity, whatever it may be that you wish to manifest. When you let go, you now have room to bring those in. And with this one, and with this fountain, you can say the words, I accept. Now we move to the fourth fountain. Again, the water is trickling. Here we are acknowledging that we are the offering. We are the gift. We walk our talk. This is the part where we start in action. We are moving forth into that new manifestation, that new dream, that new goal. In this step, you can say, I am. So we thank you, Father, Mother, God, for these gifts. We thank you for this teaching of new thought. We thank you for the expansion of our consciousness as we move forth into Christ consciousness. Thank you for this beautiful community, these smiling faces, all of the love that we experience here. We are so blessed. We are so blessed. And I end this by saying, Amen, Aho, Ashe, and so it is.